Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Keldrick here,
What's up? And it's Corey.
and we welcome you to this week's episode of A Different World. It's our virtual series on how to handle life in our new normal.
Listen, we've got a dynamic cast for you tonight, right? Awesome leaders. We're actually going to go to Nashville, Tennessee. We're also going to go to Dallas, Texas, and where else?
And then we're heading to North Carolina and down home to Hammond, Louisiana.
Yeah, listen, amazing panel. We are talking about what's next for the church after COVID-19.
And not only that, but how it's so important as ministry leaders, as churches, to bring our congregation along during the transition.
Yeah. And in order to bring you along, we want you to be a part of this discussion. So listen, right now where you are, we want you to like, we want you to comment, we want you to share. If you're on Facebook, start a watch party right now. If you are on YouTube, we want you to like, we want you to share, and click the bell, subscribe. As a matter of fact, KJ, we're going to wait, right?
We're going to wait a minute, huh?
Right now. We got time.
Let's wait.
Did you like it?
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Click
Y'all
share.
let us know when you come in.
Start a watch party on Facebook with your friends and click like and share and comment. Talk back to us, okay? It's going to be a great dialogue, great conversation.
Hello, y'all. Let us know you're in. Hello.
Yeah, let us know you're in the building.
Come on in, invite someone. How you doing tonight, Corey?
Hey, I'm good, KJ. How are you? How was your weekend?
It was good. It was busier than normal than it has been. Not much sleep, but it turned out it was productive. I'll say that it was productive, so it was good.
I agree. I think I got a lot done this weekend. Started back work today, so that was interesting. But of course, took every proper precaution. Masked up, as I said. # mask up, Louisiana. Take care of yourselves. But awesome day. Yeah.
Everyone is doing well out there.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, family? Pastor Smith, I see you there, family. Deke, Cecile, Miss May, Miss Carrie, how y'all doing? Deshauna. Hey, Mr. Eddie.
Start watch parties. Share on YouTube.
Yeah.
Corey, I'm excited about tonight.
I am. You know what? This is a long time coming, and I think we've been pumping this thing. It just shows how excited we are, right, about this dialogue and this conversation. Yeah, we think that you guys will be pleased as well. Yeah. It's much needed where we are.
Definitely. I'm ready to get into some good conversation.
Yeah, so am I. I'm ready.
You ready to get it kicked off?
Yeah, let's roll.
Right.
So, all right. So we're going to start tonight with something a little different, right? We'll start right off the back with a special guest for y'all, okay? Mm-hmm. We're talking about the apostle, reverend, bishop, doctor, preacher. Let me stop before you put something over. I know he's going to give me. I know, but this is my guy, your guy, our awesome and dynamic leader. Please help us welcome the Reverend Dr. L.K. Domain to the conversation. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, guys?
How you doing?
I'm so honored to be a part of this conversation with you all. I was excited when you pitched it, so thank you so much. Please excuse me for being outside, but man, my house, Doc is on another virtual call. Azaria is doing her thing on FaceTime, so I had to get somewhere where I can talk to you guys without a lot of movement around. So again, thank you all for including me. I just can't wait to hear what our guests have to say this afternoon.
Well, first of all, Rep, we want to start off by thanking you personally for allowing us to do this, for allowing us to be able to serve in these positions on this platform, to have these conversations week to week. It means so much to us that you trust us and that you allow us to do what we do. So thank you so much for that.
Listen, it is no secret, man. Everybody who was around the Grove and even across the country recognizes that you guys are making this thing roll for us. And so we're just so glad that you are sharing your gifts and your ministry with us. Otherwise, we'd be stuck. But thank God you all took the mantle and ran with it.
Appreciate that. All right. You ready to chat with us for a minute, Pastor?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, of course, we're in what we can air quote strange season, right? A different season for all of us. And it made me think back to 2005 when myself and my family relocated here due to Hurricane Katrina. And the question I wanted to kick off with you was, So this pandemic we're in right now, what's different for you as a leader than any other natural disaster that we've been through?
I think two things. One, with other disasters that we've dealt with, they've all are trauma situations. They've always been kind of regional, and so we were able to reach out to other people from different parts and partner with other people from different parts of our country and our world to deal with the situation. But in this, right, everybody is affected, right? And so it is global. The second thing I would say is the threat to human life. In my lifetime, we've never seen it like this, where we can't have people congregating together. You can't go out and enjoy a good meal because you just might literally kill somebody or be killed in the process. So it is those two things that I think are just a lot different. None of my training or experience or reading prepared me for anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Pastor, you actually spoke to along those lines of our next question that we wanted to ask you. But as a leader, as a pastor of a flock, of a family, what would you say has been your greatest challenge in leading during this so-called pandemic?
From a human perspective, man, it is that as a pastor, I can't touch my people. And that's what we're used to. We're used to solving problems and listening and touching people and assuring people that everything is going to be all right. And now, since the human element is sort of cut off, we have to do everything virtually. It's a struggle. It will play with our minds if we're not careful. I guess the other thing I would say is just adjusting to a world of technology like we have never seen it before. And as a preacher, and at the end of the day, I'm a preacher. And so preaching to empty pews in a Black church setting and not feeling the call and response, it's difficult. We touch one another by nature. And so that's what I would say.
And from that, I'm guessing you have had to change your ordinary way of preparing a message. How has that changed?
Yeah, a lot of it is, encouragement now, not a whole lot of correction, while we have to keep people focused on vision and how God moves in their own lives. Mm-hmm. There always has to be this element of, we will make it through this. This is not the end for us. And so a great deal of preparing is, putting myself, or preaching to myself is a better way to say that, preaching to myself to encourage me and hopefully encouraging others along the way.
And I guess that's the message. We are powerful and resilient people. And so we continue to overcome with God's help, his love and his grace and his mercy. As you know, we have an amazing lineup tonight, Pastor, but what are you hoping to hear from this discussion tonight as a leader?
2-word question. What's next? Where do we go from here? What do our dynamic guests or panelists, how do they see this thing moving forward? I think we've been saying, especially again, as Black people, our community, and as a Black church, that things are not going to be the same. We're not going back. And that's easy to say, but when it hits you, when you have to deal with it, it's another story. And so I'm just looking forward to hearing what's it going to look like from their perspective when all of this is done.
Yes, appreciate that. Any closing comments or anything you want to leave with the people? That's something special that's happening this week or anything like that?
I want to leave a word of encouragement. We as a people, we have been through it. The world and the systems of the world, they have thrown everything they can at us, and we have made it. So we're going to make it even through this pandemic. I mean, the truth is, we've been dealing with trauma and disaster our entire time in this country. And so this ain't nothing. We know how to make it. So be strong, be encouraged, and let's get our notebooks out, man, so we can compare notes according to what we're going to hear tonight.
Definitely appreciate you taking some time and talking to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys for including me.
All right, talk to you later.
Absolutely.
All right.
I know he's gonna get me later.
I have a little thing going on lately. So, as we mentioned, we have some great panelists coming on tonight. And you want to go into a little bit about what we're going to cover before we bring everyone on?
Sure. So, we have this amazing new following, like many ministries do, and we've had to adapt and go straight to online. Before it was an option, right? You didn't have to click on. You could show up to the church, sit in the pew for a good old traditional service. And so this has just pushed us and thrown us forward into a realm that we probably never thought would be our only option. And so we had to adopt and adjust. And so now that we are here and we're reaching folks who have never gone to church in their life, some of them haven't been set in the church in years, but they'll send a message and say, hey, I caught the word. Hey, that word really blessed me. And I think it's helping us to do what God requires of us. And also, the vision that God has given Pastor, which is making divine connections, connect people to people and people to God. So for me, it'll be interesting to see how we move forward with keeping our traditional setting, but building upon what we have and not leaving those that we've reached during the so-called pandemic. What about you?
Definitely. What I'm looking forward to is being able to hear how pastors are reaching the congregation from young to old. What creative techniques are they using during this time? So that's what I'm looking to the most. So
definitely. I'm excited.
And we want you guys to interact with us on tonight. So y'all go ahead, comment, share. If you're on Facebook, start a watch party. Let us know that you're watching us.
Yes, all of that, please.
Are you ready to bring on our special guests?
I think we're ready. Let's get
here.
Let's do it.
All right. Okay. So first up, we welcome our first guest, who is originally from New Orleans. She's a New Orleans native, where at the age of 15 years old, she began preaching under Bishop Paul S. Morton Sr. and Pastor Deborah B. Morton. She has accomplished much professionally and in ministry, working over 14 years in the field of construction management. She currently serves as the senior pastor of the St. James Baptist Church, Incorporated in Durham, North Carolina. She has been preaching for over 22 years. She is the founder of the Bianca J. Richardson Ministries, Incorporated, and she is expecting to release her first published book in 2020, this year. So y'all keep a lookout for that. We welcome Pastor Bianca J. Richardson to a different world. How you doing, Pastor Bianca?
I'm doing well. How are both of you?
We're doing well, Pastor. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be on this platform. Indeed, I'm definitely grateful for the invitation.
Appreciate it.
Glad to have you. Well, listen, our next guest is a senior pastor of the Watson Grove Baptist Church, known as the Grove Nashville, a growing multi-general, multi-site church with campuses in both Nashville and Franklin, Tennessee. He also currently serves as the president of the Grove Community Development Corporation and a member of the board of trustees of Belmont University. He's a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and he's married to his lovely partner in life and ministry, Minister Althea, and together they are the proud parents of 3 amazing children. Please help us welcome the Reverend Dr. John Faison. How you doing, Rev?
I'm well, man. How are you guys doing?
Doing
good.
Doing well. Glad to have you.
Our next guest. I'm sorry, Pastor.
I said honored to be here. That's all.
Appreciate it. Our next guest serves as the pastor of Beacon Light Baptist Church of Hammond, Louisiana. This pastor has a unique and passionate approach to teaching and preaching God's word. Complementing his passion for the word of God is his tireless commitment for effective and relevant community outreach. He has championed the cause of education and economic empowerment within Beacon Light and the greater Hammond community. He is married to Mrs. Trinicia Hebert and is the proud father of 3 sons. We welcome Bishop Dennis Hebert to a different world. How you doing, Bishop?
Bishop.
Uh-oh. Your mic is on mute.
The mic is muted, Bishop. There you go.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Good evening, Bishop. Thanks for joining us. And our final guest is a highly sought after preacher, public speaker, millennial engagement coach, and ministry consultant. Affectionately known as Reverend Bree, she is the curator and founder of the Black Millennial Cafe, also known as BMC, consulting practice and data resource center for persons seeking healthy engagement with Black millennials of faith. Through BMC, she has developed a suite of services to improve outreach to millennials. This woman of God lectures and presents empirical data on Black millennials and faith nationwide. Before founding BMC, she served as the young adult pastor for Friendship West Baptist Church for nearly a decade, along with Pastor Frederick D. Haynes. Please help us welcome the Reverend Dr. Brianna K. Parker.
Hey guys.
All right, how you doing?
How you doing, Reverend Bree?
Oh, wonderful. Sorry, I don't look wonderful, but I'm feeling wonderful. How are you today?
You look
Doing good.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we're gonna jump right in. That's good with y'all. That's cool with y'all. All right.
All right.
So, some questions we'll ask everyone. Some questions we have specifically to certain people, but feel free throughout the whole time to raise up that good finger, jump in the question if you want to give a comment. Okay. All right. Honest, real conversation here. Corey, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Let's do it. Let's do it. So, we're going to talk in the first segment, really up close and personal. So we want to hear from all of you all personally, as leaders, as those who are heads of ministry. How have you managed to maintain your own personal devotional time, and how are you in this time period getting what you need? We ask this question because as leaders of the flock, you're constantly pouring into so many people. So at this time, what are you doing to make sure that you're centered, that you are doing everything that you can do to be ready and present to reach God's people? And we'll start with Pastor Richardson. Let's go.
Okay. So just to answer that question, it is really, I'm sure everyone, it feels like we're working even more than normal. I don't, because everything is right in our homes. Which before we could go to the church or we could go to a building and kind of cut off. So there's certainly, a difficulty in doing that. But I have personally just been very conscious of even I have everything in my living room as it relates to the studio. And so I've literally made a disconnection. So I personally just take from a practical perspective, just take a cover and put over it. And that tells me, okay, you're not working right now. And I know that seems like something that's very simple, but that's something that I just have had to do because naturally I'm an introvert. And so usually when I'm home, I'm closed off, the TV's off, all of those things. And so I've had to make that disconnection. And then also being more conscious of actually having the days that I study and prepare, just not scheduling anything alive and just having those days where I truly set aside time and prepare myself personally, because we're all impacted, not just the people that we're serving, but us personally as well. I have family in New Orleans. I've had some deaths in my family because of COVID and because of other things. I've had to attend funerals online as well, just like some of my members. So it's been very important for me to set aside those days where I can just cut off from ministry and deal with me.
Absolutely.
Pastor Faison?
Yeah, man, I would say one of the keys has been keeping Sabbath, practicing Sabbath. 1 day a week where I just chill, I relax, I don't do anything. But for me, the biggest step has really been giving myself permission to adjust. I am a disciplined guy by nature. Military, all that stuff kind of kicks in for me. And so during pre-COVID-19 time frame, I had a structure and a schedule and a regimen, and I followed it pretty regularly. And when this COVID-19 thing kicked off, it threw everything out of whack. And I found myself making myself feel guilty. I found myself feeling ashamed and guilty of not keeping my schedule. And it took me about 10 days. To really give myself permission. And it was really kind of a moment where I heard the Lord give me something that I needed to hear. He said, if you dance, you don't dance to every song the same. All right. So if you got slow music, you dance slowly. If you got hip hop, you dance fast. If you're doing old school soul, you dance a different way. And God kind of impressed upon me when the dance changes, or when the music changes, the dance has to change. Your rhythm has to adjust to what's happening. So I had to stop beating myself up for not getting up at 5:30 in the morning and working out every day. I had to stop beating myself up for not keeping this regimen and this discipline that I had. And as the music changed, I had to adjust my rhythm, and giving myself permission to do that, grace to do that. I think is what I've really gotten the most out of this. So it wasn't necessarily keeping the devotional discipline or keeping these other things. It was giving myself the space to emotionally adjust. And that was major for me.
Bishop,
yeah, I kind of echo everything that the previous brother and sister said as well, that throwing that rhythm off was huge for me. I'm a huge person of rhythm, set in my ways as far as my weekly routine of studying, of going to the church, having staff meetings. And it really threw everything out of kilter for me. And then on top of that, I have 3 school-age boys. So I was automatically thrust into the role as homeschool teacher. My wife took up on most of it, but I was the disciplinarian and the math teacher. And so, I had to, suspend some, beat some, and all of that, all the while in my mind trying to process, okay, God, what's our next move? Where do we go from here? How do I touch and reach people? I had people in the hospital and I couldn't make hospital visits. I couldn't even get a phone call into them while they were in the hospital. So it was a huge adjustment. And personally, 2 things I'm grateful for. First of all, I'm grateful for a prayer life because I believe hearing God in this season is paramount over everything. And then secondly, I'm grateful for a covenant relationship with my spiritual father. I think that in this time in which we live, those relationships are paramount. Not that they have all of the answer, but they can kind of give you some wisdom. And I believe wisdom in this season should be the thing that's ordering our steps, and not necessarily, emotionalism, if you would, because in an environment like this, our emotions are just all over the place.
Right.
And so to have somebody that you can echo some true and very vulnerable feelings to, and then to get some wise instructions, I think it was key for me.
Reverend Bree.
Yeah, I've loved this time to a certain extent. I too put a lot of pressure on myself, to kind of operate and produce in a certain way. But about the only thing I do keep regularly that I'm like, that's like any regimen, is like hygiene and Jesus. Like that's about all I can promise. And so, you work, I do as much as I can while giving myself grace. I was producing a lot for a good number of weeks, and then I was talking to my friend, and I said, I think I lost my mojo. And he was like, what? And I was like, I think I lost my mojo. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I was producing, I was doing well, like I had energy and, I was making it happen. And then all of a sudden, like I just can't do anything. He was like, you're just not losing your mojo? Just be grateful. And I was like, is this what's happening? Like, let me know that this is happening to everybody. And so he was like, yeah, Brianna, it's a tough space to operate in. You can't produce the same. And I was like, oh, okay. So I gave myself time. And last week I had some stuff come up in my family. And at first I didn't know what to do. And I was like, I told my admin, like, cancel all my meetings for, this week. And she's like, huh? And I was like, what's the point of being a CEO if you can't cancel your own meetings, like, for the whole week? And so I stopped. I took care of what was going on with my family. And I rested. I didn't produce much. I was fine with that. I worked out one time for about 2 minutes and 36 seconds dancing to Beyonce, and after that I was winded, and so I was like, oh, I can't do this no more. And so I'm really just enjoying the time without so much discipline, and then trying to also take advantage of the time that I have to be still, to hear from God, to, just spend time. I'm so grateful. The BMC could have totally tanked during the pandemic, but instead We've been extremely successful and very busy. And so every time something new happens, and every time, I get to send out a new good old invoice, or I get a phone call that I really appreciate, I have to stop and thank God. But that's about the only consistency. Hygiene and Jesus. But I'm really trying to take advantage of this time with God, not exercising and then
Awesome.
Hygiene and Jesus.
Right. I like that.
Hygiene and Jesus.
So, Pastor Faison, as it relates to this new normal, when this happened, how was the transition, or rather, how has it been for your ministry? Were you guys prepared to go to online worship? I mean, because you hear for years people have said, "Oh, Facebook is the devil. We don't need to use that." Now every pastor is saying, "Join us on Facebook, join us on YouTube." And so, specifically for your ministry, how has the transition been?
We've been online streaming since probably about 2014, 2015. So that part of it really wasn't that difficult. That part. But don't let anybody fool you into thinking that this transition has been easy. I don't care if you were prepared or not. Nobody was completely prepared for this. And even if you had the technology, did you have the capacity? And if you had the capacity, did you have the emotional maturity of staff and members and yourself? I mean, it's an adjustment for everybody. So nobody has hit the button and said, "Oh, we just kind of we all right." No, everybody's struggling in some way or another. What has helped though is having the technology piece and being able to introduce that before this happened. But even when it happened, it changed the expectation. So pre-COVID, I hate to be generalist in my statements, but pastors will understand what I'm saying. You could draw people to the sanctuary, and that would give you a little grace in the sanctuary. In the online platform, you don't have a lot of grace. If your sound was struggling and having problems in the sanctuary, people had gotten dressed. They were already there. So they give you a few moments to get that right. But you got about 5 to 7 seconds for a bad sound online.
So they click off, right?
Before people decide, I think I'm going visiting this weekend, right? So that's different. You also in this space, the concentration is not so much on preaching or the product of the service. That may have been the case pre-COVID. You know what's keeping people now? Pastoral care. It's the ways in which you touch people throughout the week. It's the ways in which people feel like they are empathized with and you are present in their lives, even if you have to use technology to get it done. So you can't draw, you're not going to keep people with preaching in this moment. You got to touch them. You got to generate community. You got to figure out how to touch and minister to different demographics. And that connects people. And what we've seen is that our church, people have joined our church in the pandemic, not because of my preaching, but because they felt touched and cared for.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Bishop, has the transition also been the same way for you guys at Beacon Light?
Yeah, I agree with everything my brother said. We've been streaming for a number of years. We started streaming just audio, like back in 2008 or something like that. People could log in and just listen to the service. So that the technology part of it was not as hard as trying to understand and figure out the data. There's a science to streaming. It's not just going live and seeing how many likes you get, but to really pinpoint, to be able to analyze, how many men are you attracting? How can we engage more men in online service? What geographies are we doing well in, and what geographies do we need to expand in? So that type of analysis was new for us, because we were just before, whosoever will, let them come. But now we have to become a little bit more targeted as to our approach. And then, of course, how do you disciple folks in a virtual environment? It's got to be more than just going to church. It has to be, how can you engage them? And so we're doing virtual groups where we have young adults, we have seniors, we have women, we have men, we have all of these folks who are meeting throughout the week. And married couples, I've been spending time with our married couples. There's been articles out that domestic violence has increased over the shutdown. And so we have to have ministry that's there for couples, so that, you know, the medical emergency doesn't become a domestic emergency as well. So it's a number of ways that you can touch people outside of church. And so that's what we're putting our focus on, more of the life value that we can add versus just the Sunday experience.
Absolutely.
All right. So many of you said it in our opening, how everyone is anxious and stress and anxiety levels are through the roof. What do you feel, and we'll start with Reverend Bree, what do you feel is the greatest concern of the people? And can you touch on millennials also, the greatest concern of people?
Sure. So the data says millennials are most impacted by the feeling of isolation. So it's not so much like, am I going to be able to continue to work? It's more, you know, it was one thing to be isolated by choice, and it's another thing to be isolated by force. And so since many millennials, you know, we haven't married at the rate of previous generations, you know, a lot of millennials are home alone. And so it's not just like, oh, I have my family here and they get on my nerves. Like, somebody come get on my nerves to make me feel a little better. And so that's not happening. And it's a dangerous spot to be in, you know, for many millennials. And so right now, the isolation is the most difficult part. And then after that, it's finances, only because millennials were severely underemployed. So while we may be the most degreed generation in the country, we're underemployed. And so if any of us were essential workers, I'm sorry, not essential workers, and who had to have like certain type of contact and lost a job that is, you know, I mean, what is this? It's not a recession yet, but we've seen two. So it's kind of like I was trying to pick myself back up. I finally had savings. You know, I thought I was at a decent place. I finally bought a home, and then this. Like, I don't know how many more tragedies or, you know, like global situations can happen in our lifetime. You know, we're not even 40 yet. And so I think trying to bounce back after, you know, 2 decades of either global tragedies or, you know, just tragedy altogether is just really difficult. And so I think we're going to see a lot of different habits come out of this for millennials. I don't know that we'll ever trust money again, like trust that money will be there. It's happened too many times to us for us to have any kind of faith in money or jobs. So you're going to see some odd spending habits and lifestyles, I think. Another thing is I think we may feel a little differently about being solo dolo and not being married, or at least the next time a quarantine comes, you know, we find somebody to quarantine with us, even if it's a girlfriend or, you know, just a friend that's not romantic. It's like, girl, did you want to quarantine together? So I think we're going to see relationships change a lot because of this. But I think we're going to see some generational patterns that we just won't. People say hygiene will be a thing. I don't think so. I don't really think we're going to stick to the cleaning in the way we should. But I think the other two are going to be things that we will see transform a generation in ways that we didn't expect.
Wow. Okay. Pastor Richardson, Pastor Bianca, can you touch on your demographic of your church, and also that same question, what's the greatest concerns that you're seeing in your region?
So the demographic of my church, actually the organization is about 94 years old, and I am the first female pastor of the church. Most of my dynamic is 50 plus, and we have some, I'm 38 years old, and we have some that's, you know, my age and a little younger in our 20s. But honestly, the dynamic that I have is they're really just trying to get back to normal. And in their mind, they're thinking that we're going to go back in some cases to what it was before. And so the challenge has been is to actually shift our dynamic to say there is actually going to be a new normal. And what we have instituted into our ministry since this pandemic is the virtual presence that many of our dynamic did not, was not involved in, and now they're becoming more involved. I know that one of my assignments for this particular ministry is to shift the culture. And so this actually pushed me into year 2 of pastoring this particular ministry so very quickly. Because of the pandemic, we had to go into year 2. I'm a project manager, and so I have years planned out on where we're going for the church, and so I actually had to get rid of year 1 and go into year 2 because of this pandemic. And so that's what I see, is that from my dynamic, they're just trying to get to normal, and I'm had to really just talk to them individually. In some cases, I've made a lot of phone calls on the phone, just checking to see how they're doing, talking through what this next phase is going to look like. Everyone wants to know, when are we going to get back to church? And just talking about how we're going to do that. So that's been very important to my dynamic.
And that's the thing, because we hear people say, I just want to get back. And of course, we have that segment of the church, and all churches do this. Say, listen, I just want to be flat foot in the church. I want to hear some good old singing. Mm-hmm. I don't want all this other stuff. But we've also noticed that we've gained such a large digital presence. And so the idea is, how do we hold on to what we've captured as well, while also honoring, because, the churches who have wide ranging of demographics, it's almost as though you don't want to leave anybody behind, but you want to continue to grow it as well. So it's always tough. I'm interested to hear from you all, especially those of you with teams. Reverend Faison, you made mention of it earlier, about even if you had the team, if you got the media manager, you got the person willing with the camera, willing to open up YouTube. I mean, how has the transition been for your team? So folks behind the scenes, are they willing to come to the church? Are they like, Rev, I can't come, I got kids at home, or are they masked up? I mean, how has that been? Is that kind of been tough? Because the reality is, as leaders, you still have to provide a virtual service. So how do you take into account those people who are actually helping you do that?
My stance has always been this: safety and health is first. Everything else is next. Period. That's for me. That's not up for debate. As a pastor, I'm a shepherd, and so I have to shepherd my leadership team just like I shepherd the church. So I'm not going to do all of these things to meet expectations or to do ministry for the church and then endanger staff in the process. I don't think that's good stewardship. I think it's selfishness. What we've discovered is, by giving them the space to kind of be comfortable, be safe, but also what this has done, it has heightened the creativity of the people on our staff. I've seen our staff come up with answers for things in, hours, minutes, to respond to challenges and shifts and changes. In many cases, when I first started pastoring the Grove in 2012, I felt like I was walking the puppy. Like, I was setting the pace and dragging the puppy to come with me. Now I'm holding on to the pit bull who's dragging me. And the pit bull is the staff. Like, they got my feet in the wind and they're flying. I have millennials on staff. We got boomers and busters on staff. We're very intentional about being multi-generational. But the staff is ahead of me, which is an amazing thing. And I want it that way. So I can kind of look long term, but they get to run around and play and be creative and try new stuff. And I tell them all the time, listen, I'd rather you ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. I need you to respond. I need you to be able to move and minister to those folks and minister and lead the church. That's the blessing of having an amazing staff. So when it comes to the balance, it's always going to be safety and health first. But I think giving them the space and giving them the room to be able to work from home and do what they do, they have actually become the culture shifter and the game changers for our church. My name's on the marquee, but they run the engine. Period. They get it done. They get it done. So I want to set conditions for them to be able to excel and them to be able to succeed. And it's safety first, and then creativity and all the other stuff.
Wow, amazing. Pastor Richardson, you feel the same way as far as your makeup? Because I know some churches vary. Some of them have a full team. Some of them may have one or two people. Some of them had to call in and assemble a team, right? To say, listen, pull a cell phone out. We got to make this work.
Right.
So talk to us kind of about the dynamic of your team in the transition as far as doing virtual online worship?
So actually, like some churches, I am really leading the pack. I have a few members who have seen the vision of what we're trying to do, and they're adding to it. And I've had to assemble a team. So there are some of us who just didn't have that dynamic. Our church has been in transition from a previous leadership to my leadership over the past 2 years. And so there's so much shifting and culture shifting that has happened in the past 2 years. And so I'm still kind of leading the pack on this particular, pandemic readiness and how we're reacting to things. And then also just really meeting the needs of all of our dynamic. It really has been, challenging, but I do have a few people that are really, really helping me to think, progressively as well. We've added some things like life sessions where it's not just the preach word in a normal service, to kind of start bringing in and shifting the conversation of faith and the conversation of how we're dealing with life. Recently, I had someone on who really, really dealt with COVID and how it's progressing. So I've really just been pushing the envelope, and actually have been getting some very, very good feedback from our members on the type of content as well. So I'm just a driving force right now with a few members helping.
With that same topic in mind, Bishop Hebert, with everything going on in some churches having to make a quick shift and kind of in a panic mode to get technology and everything going, making sure the youngest member has youth church and the oldest member is able to connect still. But on the other hand, we're still seeing a growth more than ever on membership, giving. What would you say is the contributing factor of that?
I think we have been intentionally stripping away things that don't matter. And it's really allowing us to focus on, why we are here. I think all of us can agree when we take an inventory of what it is that we did on a week-to-week basis. There are a lot of things that we did because it was tradition. There were a lot of things that we did because it was the custom of our church. But I believe this pandemic has allowed us to focus in on the things that really, really matter. I think all of us are probably doing an hour and 15-minute service now. Which I think is going to become the norm, even once we get back into brick and mortar, that the commodity of time is going to be something that we cannot just waste. So I think all of those factors are important. Our church as well have allowed individuals to join over these last several weeks. And as Pastor Faison mentioned, I don't really think it's because of my preaching. I really think it's because of the ministry that's there. That they are seeing some type of value in that space. All preachers want to believe that it's our preaching that's driving the ministry, but really it's the teams that we have behind us. It's the value added services and things that we provide to the community that I really believe make up what the church does. And so if you're singularly focused on Sunday mornings only, I think you're losing in this season. Because right now, as you may mention in the questions previously, we have to talk about mental health. We have to talk about our physical health. We have to begin to talk about our education system. That's something we've been very involved in over the last several weeks of how do we diminish the summer slide. Our children have been out of school since March, and they're not going to go back until August, prayerfully. And so the church has to put something in place so that, we can make sure that we are ministering in the areas where the government has gaps, and we could call attention to that as well. So I think all of those value added things really allows for the church to prosper in this particular atmosphere that we have to work in.
Great, thank you. Reverend Bree, can you explain a little bit of what you do, and have you seen a change in your digital footprint? Has it increased? Has it been harder for you? How has your reach been?
Yeah, so it's really odd to say, and it's kind of even hard to share, but COVID has been really good for me in the BMC. Well, no, not COVID. The what the pandemic has created, right? I don't have to beg anybody to, want to progress. I don't have to beg anyone to see why it's important to make drastic changes sometimes, or sometimes, just strategic, slow paced changes. Like I just, it's like the pandemic proved some points for me. And so people who would engage us before and kind of didn't know if it was necessary, like called immediately. And as a matter of fact, I remember when we first quarantined, I called all my clients because I felt like that was the Jesus thing to do, and give them the opportunity to get out of their contracts and not keep their contracts because they didn't know what was coming, and everyone was like, "No, wait, what are you talking about? Like we don't want to cancel our contract. We need this." So that was pretty encouraging. What do I do? So I run the Black Millennial Cafe. It started because I was the only researcher, because of my doctoral work, I was the only researcher to hold extensive quantitative and qualitative data on Black millennials and faith. And from that, I began to lecture and train and consult. And so people started to come. And I just became a consultant after a while because I also had 10 years of assimilation under my belt. And then I realized that the research we had wasn't enough, and there were not enough Black faith researchers, if there are any Black faith research companies. And so I decided to become a full-time researcher and consultant. And so that's what I spend my time doing, creating new research, or sometimes people come and commission a research project. Like let's say a Reformation is wanting to understand how they grow. And so they want to gauge a certain demographic, or if someone, I've had campaigns from Hollywood and politicians, and just people just need research for different reasons from Black faith research point of view, and community research. And so that's what I do now. And right now I'm working on the State of the Black Church project with Barna as the lead researcher for the project and a partner. And so we're trying to give the Black church data that we haven't seen in 21 years. And we teamed up with a tech company to allow Black churches everyone can do it, but we have a Black church area where Black churches and organizations can get on the platform to be able to survey their churches and their congregations for free, so that you can take the guesswork out of ministry and stop making assumptions that you know what people want because you're not able to be with them and do pastoral care the same. So right now we just released the Return to Church survey, so that, and I think a lot of pastors have been pleased to see that they were making an assumption that their members were ready to go back, but the members weren't so ready. And that they were then able to gauge and say, people don't always know what they're going back to, because there's a little trauma in going back to church and not being able to hug your pastor. You know what I mean? Or going back to church and everyone's having a mask where you have to sit far away. Like Pastor Faison is my friend. I don't even want to see the day where we see each other and go like this. And then you know what I mean? Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And that can be emotional for people. So you have custom questions, and I'm like, encouraging churches to ask, how do you feel about not being able to hug your pastor? How are you going to feel? Are you going to feel comfortable? You know what I mean? Sitting this far away. So just the truth about it. No live music when we come back because of COVID, and so just being honest with them and asking those questions so that people have a better picture of what it means to come back to church. So yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome.
And if I can say, I think historically the Black church has not embraced research like what my sister is talking about. So I think that companies like hers are going to be so essential for us to help chart the path moving forward. I don't think we could do so by just praying and hearing God. I believe wisdom, and that wisdom that comes through research that tells us, we can't force things on people. When you're talking about ministering to millennials who are information-driven demographic, we have to begin to have the research down to a science so that it can kind of shed a light on where the Black church is going.
Yeah, and when we talk about digital footprint, I also want to say that because people think they can just flyer their way into being, having a digital input, but it really takes support, and people like to believe in you, like Pastor Faison and so many other friends and even some of my colleagues and associates who could actually vouch for you or the work that you're doing and say, look, just like you just said, Bishop, that this is legitimate, that it's necessary. And the more people that can actually vouch for you in that way or research all together helps. So your digital footprint, yes, it grows, but it doesn't grow because you have a great social media person. Your digital footprint grows because other people use their digital footprint to expand yours. And so this whole thing that everything happens in a bubble. I had a wise friend of mine tell me, and I've been saying this all year, he might be on this webinar or not, but he told me, God is not going to bless you through or with things. God is going to bless you through people. Yep. And that was something as an introvert. I heard Pastor Bianca say that as an introvert, that was like the scariest thing ever. Somebody could have told me to run behind an 18-wheeler and I would have had a better, chance of being successful in that than just being like more extroverted. It was like, what God gonna do? Like, that is scary. But to embrace that truth, right? To embrace that truth has been probably the greatest blessing to the BMC, more than my skill set and ability and capacity. Embracing that your work expands because other people give you grace and space to expand based on what they've built.
Right. So this is good. And since we're on this topic, let's unpack this. Actually, we're getting tons of questions from social media, y'all. They are loving this discussion. Ms. Gwen Hatfield is asking, how can we get technology training for those that need it so virtual church can be something that they can welcome? And the idea is there's a recurring theme, right? That digital resources are harder to use for some of the older congregations. And just like we're having this talk right now, we're talking about all of the positives, all of the great things that social media that we can do digitally. And we hear, listen, it's great for millennials, it's great for the youth, but what about our folks we can't leave behind? So like, how do we, like, what is the plan? How do we get people on board? Do we do videos to show them how to show mother at home how to log on and watch service? If she doesn't have a grandson or her granddaughter to help her? I think that's been our biggest challenge, but I'd love to hear from all of you on that topic.
I can actually give some experience on this. I've had a few of my members call and say, Pastor, I don't want to listen to you on the conference call because I have to have a conference call for those who just are not on social media, maybe don't have internet at their homes. And they have literally asked me, can you send me the link? And I have been on the phone, walked through pressing on the link, showing them how to view YouTube because they don't have a Facebook account from their phone. And so it really has been a personal touch. And I've really had to do that personally. So I think it takes that personal touch, but maybe a good idea is to have those videos, but also that personal touch. They were so appreciative. And even the next week when they could see us, they could see our director of music and not just listen to him sing, but actually look at him. It was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm really enjoying this. And I think they felt more connected to actually be able to see our faces versus just hearing our voice. So sometimes it's just that personal touch that I personally have had to do.
Yeah, that's good. Pastor Faison, how are you?
I'd agree 100%. I think this, for Black church, this is a part of discipleship for us. This is not just a space where we're trying to help people get connected to us. We're in a space where seniors need digital access and digital acumen to do everything.
Yes.
Their medicine, their connection to their friends out of town, to IRS tax returns, and you name it. Everything is going to a digital platform. So us ministering to them, it might start with trying to get them connected to church, but we see it as a form of discipleship. We're actually helping folks grow so that they can manage in a space that is different from the world they're in. This is the progression of technology and the need for it. Y'all, this really isn't new. right? These are some of the folks who grew up with no microwaves, and everything got heated on the stove, right? That sounds weird and strange today.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a microwave, but there was a time when that wasn't the case. That's a time when everybody didn't have washer and dryer at the house, but they adjusted. And so this is another one of those moments where necessity is breeding creativity. And so it's an open window now that I think we have. And for us, we one of the things we pride ourselves on is being multi-generational. Multi-generational meaning we've got folks who are 9 months old all the way to folks who are 90 years old. And one of the ways you help facilitate that community and that connection is by letting the young folk who have always been taught by the elders now teach the elders their world. And it creates this multi-generational conversation and dialogue where everybody sees the need for each other.
Absolutely.
And what would happen if a high schooler put together some webinars and some talk through classes for seniors, and then lead them through this moment, and then watch their faces change as they get to connect and see people they haven't seen in 7 to 8 weeks. Every Wednesday at 12 noon, I do something called the Seasoned Saints Check-In. This is for the pastoral touch for the seniors who don't have internet access or may just not be familiar with it. Hearing them over the phone is like seeing their faces. It's incredible. It really, really is incredible. But talking to them, most of them now are on Facebook. They weren't before. Most of them will also remember when I arrived and I was pushing this technology, getting everybody involved and getting us online. And they were like, I don't understand, Pastor. I don't get it. I don't understand. Listen, today, they could not see a world without Facebook. I'm talking 85-year-old folks.
That's true.
90-year-old folks. Could not see a world without Facebook. Pastor, I ain't get it then, but I'm sure glad. I mean, we've had these conversations because they've been able to make the progression because there was space given to them and the opportunity to this is not the space to dog people who don't have technology.
Right.
Space to help bring them along.
Yeah.
And to create the space, and to create the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And I think it's an important conversation to have because there's no way we can return to the church and it be normal again. This is our new normal. And so now so many ministries have an online presence. So what do you do? You got people going to church that haven't been to church in years, that haven't set foot in the ministry, that will even call us and say, hey, caught the broadcast. Thank you for the word. So I think greater outreach.
They're not just going to your church.
Yeah. They hopping.
Hey, listen, COVID is a church hopper's dream.
Right.
They hit 5 to 7 services every week.
Right.
That's true.
Bishop Abraham, you want to add anything to that?
No, I definitely agree. I was seeing the same thing in our church as it relates to the multi-generationalism that happens in the church. I think prior to the pandemic, we had a lot of churches where young people go, and then we had a lot of the traditional context where, the older people go. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the church to look like the church that I believe Jesus died for, which is a multi-generational church. And so it's not just young folks educating the older congregation on how to get with technology, but there's some wisdom that they have that needs to be downloaded to the younger generation. I was buying some books last week, and I'm noticing the proliferation of the relationship books. Everybody now is writing relationship books, right? We live in a relationally deficit world, right? Deficient world. And so, we need the wisdom. I believe, as I read through some of these books, I'm like, man, this grandma wisdom, this stuff that my mama taught me back, when I was in middle school about how to handle certain situations and how to embrace certain relationships. So I think that cross-pollination of the millennial generation and the older generation coming together, I think it's going to be beautiful. And I think that's going to be something that we can look forward to embracing as we move forward.
Great. We're going to move into our last segment with you all. With outreach still in mind, moving forward, how can we do effective outreach? How would outreach look? Anybody can jump in. Anybody jump in.
I'll start there because I'm very, very passionate about that. You know, when this first happened, you saw on social media a lot of churches that were doing a lot of things. You also had a lot of folks that was Me Tooing, you know, that they did it, we're doing it also. And I think that as it relates to outreach, this is what, you know, I challenge my staff with. Let's determine what the need is, because the need is not the same in every community. If you pastor in a urban context, your need is going to be different than if you pastor in a rural context. You know, if you pastor in the city where certain resources are available, certain problems are there, then there might be a certain lane of effectiveness there. But that same thing is not always portable if you're in a rural context. And so I believe we have to discover what the need is. I believe one of the things that we're called to do is in the area of education. Our church has been doing that for a number of years. And that's where we're going to stay. Yes, we do feeding, but that's not kind of like the primary thing that we're doing right now. And so I believe everybody has to hear God as saying, I want this church to be responsible for this type of outreach in this particular city. And that has to be our motivation.
Reverend Bree, can you touch on how outreach will look for millennials and youth?
Yeah, kind of. I think outreach will be less PR, and it'll be much more intentional. I think we'll stop doing stuff that looks good on flyers, maybe, and just really meets the needs of people. We'll stop doing stuff that makes us look like we're doing unprecedented work, and maybe do something that's been done for decades because it's what the people need. And again, it's not something you have to do in the dark, because the platform that I was discussing earlier isn't just a church check-in. You get a community check-in that you can send a link out to your community and see what they need. City councilman here in Dallas, I called him when we got the tool, and I was like, yo, I think we need to like see what Dallas needs. And he was like, okay, let's do it. And when we did, the highest demographic was 70 and up. And so like they were actually doing it and taking the surveys and saying what they needed. And so I think it can also be youth. I think we're really missing this conversation with youth. I think we're so worried about getting tithers right now that we're forgetting that youth need mental health groups. Youth need, even if you don't have a summer school, maybe you can do summer school Saturdays or summer camp Saturdays, or, you know, there are a lot of things you can't teach children right now, but guess what you can do that's necessary? Coding. You can hire somebody to teach coding, so that while our young people are trying to figure out what to do with school, they can possibly create what your church needs digitally and technologically. And so I think outreach is going to look like sometimes saving people from themselves because of what the anxiety does in this season. But one thing I'm sure of, we don't have to guess. We need to spend time with God and see where God's heart is for our people who we're responsible for. And I think we need to know, after we have the facts, what God wants us to do and how we solve problems in a way that still honors God. But I think if you are doing things, you know, just based on your own discernment and lack of engagement with people in this season, you're going to fail because you want to fail.
Absolutely. Yeah, go to Pastor Richardson.
Well, actually, I think that Bishop and Reverend Bree really answered that question holistically, because we touched on identifying the problem, and then also really meeting not just a spiritual need, but also the mental health and the practical needs of people as well. And I think that is so true, that outreach is going to look like that. Sustainability, financially, which is one of my passions. And we've actually, on some of the life sessions that we've had, I actually invited people to talk about what does it look like to be sustainable financially going forward. And I think that's something else that people are going to need to understand, because this is affecting all of us in different ways and different dynamics. I've been, one of those workers where I'm still actually working during this. Because of construction, and my clients are healthcare, pharmaceutical, and industrial clients. So I'm in the mix of all of this, but at the same time, there are those who are not the frontline workers who, were furloughed, who did have to utilize their savings to get them through this. And so the question is, how do we remain sustainable? And I think that's another thing on how we do that, even as a Black community, because many of us, are living paycheck to paycheck, borrowing to get to the paycheck. And so how do we teach that going forward to actually create sustainability where there wasn't any before? So I think outreach is going to have a whole nother dynamic and bring in a personal side too.
So moving forward, when we first released this flyer, we had a huge pouring, people reaching out to us saying, hey, ask them this, ask them this. Some actually pastors themselves. And what we kept hearing from them, a recurring question was, listen, how do we hold on, or as leaders, how do you all hold on to the online presence when we go back? Specifically, what best practices have become a part of your ministry's culture that will continue after this? What will you continue to do, or what will you start to do? Some of the things that you're doing now that you plan to do once everything goes back to this new normal.
Don't just hold on to technology and digital presence. Move it forward.
Yeah.
I don't care what, if they have a vaccine today and prescriptive medicine to take away all the symptoms so that no one dies, your ministry will still die if you don't push your digital presence.
Absolutely.
Don't stop at Facebook because that's all you know. Don't stop at Zoom. Like, at least challenge your team to come up with one new technologically innovative idea a month. We have to do a hybrid ministry for the rest of our lives at the very least.
Yeah.
And if we don't do hybrid, which is going to be a portion that's digital and a portion that's in person, you won't have a church. Because guess what? They've been able to see other churches. They know you ain't the hottest thing. So nobody's the hottest thing, to be clear. But they have to come to your church now because you can do what no one else can do. And that is love them well and meet their needs. That's that pastoral care that Pastor Faison was talking about. So we have to figure out a way to digitally do that because people have choices. When we get on the airplane, they say to us, thank you so much for choosing this airline. We know you had a number of airlines to choose and you could have gone with any one of them. But the fact that you decided to fly with blah, blah, blah makes our day. Right. We're going to start to get those kind of speeches, Right. I know there are 50 little churches you could have watched today, but the fact that you decided to come here, because we have to keep that in mind. Yeah. And so when you do that, it feels like you're in the world, like it's a lot of fish in the sea, right? And so if you've seen that meme, it's a lot of fish in the sea. They're like, yeah, but this is my fish. Don't mess with this fish. This fish right here is mine. You have to figure out what you do exceptionally well.
Yep.
Because what you do exceptionally will be successful. And so you have to figure out that you cannot give everybody everything they need. But what you do that you do exceptionally well, nobody can mess with you on that. And the people who need that thing will always come to you. You don't have to worry about trying to outdo someone else. You don't have to worry about trying to, give glitz and glamour. All you have to do is do what you do exceptionally well, because what is exceptional will be successful.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree there.
Go ahead, Bishop.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree there. Identity is so very, very important. Woe to the man or woman or ministry that don't have an identity in the midst of a storm. When you're trying to find and grab a hold of your identity when everything around you is shifting. I certainly agree. Like, virtual campus has to become like the multi-campus model was in the last season. In the last season, we had a lot of churches who embraced the multi-campus, multi-site model of ministry. Your virtual church is that. You have to have a virtual church pastor, somebody that looks at the data, somebody that reaches out and offer pastoral care to those who are coming to your virtual campus. How do we analyze the data from our footprint in the virtual campus, and then begin to plan ways on how do we disciple these individuals? How do we engage them in some sort of ministry service, etc.? I believe that is the new frontier as it relates to the online. We're never going to leave this behind. That's our reality for now and forevermore. Is that we have to have that digital presence. And so seeking out that young person or that collaboration, which is another word I wanted to just make mention of, that we may not have everything in our church, but we can collaborate with the local university who has students who need internships and would love to come and set up and run your media ministry, your virtual ministry. So these are awesome ways that the church can get beyond the four walls and to, you know, begin to lay down some groundwork in the community.
Great. Pastor Faison, I think you wanted to.
Absolutely. The identity piece, that's the word I was looking for. There's a reason why Burger King, McDonald's, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell can all sit on the same block,
right,
and all win. Because while they're in the same block, they all serve food, but they don't serve the same type of food. And they attract different types of customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't hurt McDonald's to call Burger King and tell Burger King we got a ketchup. And somebody from Burger King bring a case of ketchup over to McDonald's, saying, "Hey, hit us back when you get your shipment."
Yeah.
Because while they understand they're next to each other, they're really not in competition because they attract different folk.
Yeah.
So when you understand your identity, it doesn't matter who's next to you and who's doing what. You know who you are, you know what you do well, and that will attract those that need what you offer. I want to touch on the community piece real quick. It's important to survey and figure out what the needs are, but it's also important to survey and figure out what your gifts are, right? Because community impact really is the meeting of the need with the capacity of the folk in the church. So let's say there's a need in the community for tutoring, but if I don't have no teachers, people who know how to do that in my church, and I'm gonna set up as Dr. Bree said, I'm gonna set up a tutoring ministry, but it ain't successful because I'm not exceptional.
Yeah,
I got to find the gift sets, the acumen, the capacity, the competence in my church that matches the needs in my community. And when those meet, you got something powerful. You got something impactful. I think COVID-19 is going to return us to being community churches.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I think while we have a global audience, it's going to return us to really meeting the needs of our community. To really figuring out what's happening around us. For many, I can't speak to rural churches, but many urban churches, man, there are churches in 2020 that still exist that their community doesn't know they exist. In 2020.
Yeah.
Right. So church gets shut down tomorrow and the community don't miss it. Because they got dope buildings, they got parking spaces, but there is there are two worlds between the community they sit in and the church where it is.
Wow.
I think to survive in COVID-19, to survive post-pandemic, you better figure out how to connect to that community, because that community is going to keep you alive. That community is going to keep you functioning. That community is going to keep you engaged and involved. And as you feed into that, I think post-pandemic, that's the key to doing effective about it.
Wow. Good. Can I see the hands of anyone who is in the phase of planning for the return, whether that's your team, membership? Okay, so that's everyone. What is that looking like for you guys? What is that looking like? Logistics, who comes?
Data-based decision.
Yep.
Not date-based decision.
That's good. Good.
That could be my quote.
That's the church. That's the church.
It's about data, man. It's about data. It's also about understanding that the churches we represent and the folks we lead have been disproportionately impacted.
Yep.
Why? By COVID-19. I don't care what my state governor or my mayor does. We take it our time. We're not rushing. I'm not endangering people. Safety and health are going to be number one. It's always been the reality that when America catches a cold, Black folks get pneumonia.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's always been the case that when it rains in the city, it floods in the hood.
Yeah.
It's not an accident that any illness, any sickness, any disease in America, you look at the ratio of African Americans, we make up 12 to 13% of the population, but we have higher death rates, we have higher risk of infection because of something called social determinants of health. Mm-hmm. Those outside factors that facilitate this exacerbation of whatever health condition happens in our community. Mm-hmm. Knowing that's the case, we would be horrible stewards to make returning to church more important than the health, the safety of our people. So for the Grove, we are taking our time. Yeah. Not setting dates, not setting deadlines. Now, of course, as a strategist, as a visionary, you got to be thinking about this stuff, planning and figuring it out. Yes. Mm-hmm. But ain't no vaccine.
Right.
Ain't no cure. Ain't nothing changed since 7 weeks ago.
Right.
So why are we in a rush to jump back in?
Right.
Because people are choosing economy over humanity.
Absolutely.
And I just can't do that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I echo everything that he just said. That's the same message I just gave to our leadership team before I jumped on this call here. We're not rushing back. There's nothing that's motivating us more than the safety and the health of our country and data. We sent out a poll to our membership, and it came back. We're not excited about coming back in when they opened up. Louisiana opened up last Friday, and if they say they ain't coming back, what I look like, opening the doors up, and then you got to go throwing shade on folks that don't want to come back.
You ain't there by yourself right now.
Yeah. You're fussing at people talking about they don't have no faith because they ain't coming back. This works. I love waking up. We record ours and then play it on Sunday. I love waking up, having prayer with my family and watching the church service together. It's something different from a pastor to be able to sit down with my family and for us to watch church. So I believe it's opening up some new opportunities for us.
Yeah.
And I like to echo what both Bishop and Dr. Faison have said. Here in North Carolina, we had a federal judge to actually overturn the restriction on the governor's stay-at-home order and allowing churches temporarily to have indoor services. And I actually put out a letter this week saying, judge is not going to make that decision for us. We're going to go with wisdom. We're going to go with the Spirit of God leading us, and that we're going to go with the data. And we are voluntarily maintaining virtual services because what they're trying to do is saying that they're hampering on our religious right to have service, which, is not the case in this particular situation. We are looking at our members and considering our members' health first. And so here in North Carolina, we've actually had to make that decision voluntarily. We are voluntarily choosing to maintain virtual services, even though a federal judge overturned our governor's stay-at-home order. So those are decisions that we're making, and those are decisions that we will continue to make based on the data and wisdom. That is just so important.
Yeah, I also want to just add that, when we read statistics about the church in general, air quotes there, they're not talking about the Black church, all right? Most of the research, and I guess Reverend Bree can kind of speak to this, that's done at large is more evangelical in nature than it is speaking to our Black tradition in the church as well. So even if we're reading, we have to be able to interpret the data and be critical consumers of information to know that if churches are going back, is not necessarily talking about the Black church.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's usually, I tell people, they say, what do we do with this data? I said, you know exactly what white evangelicals are doing. Whenever you see that data, that's what they're telling you, what white evangelicals and those who mimic white evangelicals are usually doing. And so it's really important that even on the platform, the goal is to stop having to hear 47%, because right now the national data 57% of pastors are ready to go back in and they're going to use face masks and gloves and things. And sometimes we can be like, oh, 57% of the people are doing it, and the number will climb for them, right? And then we'll start to believe that this is the wave of ministry and this is what we're supposed to do. But like Pastor Faison said, their members are not disproportionately affected, and they have health care, and outside of church, they don't have to engage other people because of the types of jobs that they have. And so the point is that we get to the point where we have our own data, and so we're not wondering, oh, you know what I mean? Like, well, who did this? Because normally they're not going to tell you the percentage of African Americans who even took the survey because they would be embarrassed to even look at it. So when I do reintegration strategies with my clients, I tell them all to remember Shifra and Pua, and to get to the point that they fear God more than the king, and that they do whatever is necessary to let the people live. And then outside of that, whatever they do in this season, that's going to be in person. They got to do it without me, because I refuse to get to the point where I am going to allow money or engagements to make me move. It's like I'm not going to dance for $1 on nobody's stage. I don't care who it is. And we have to get to the place where we don't dance for dollars, and we don't ask other people to dance so that we get dollars. We have to get to the point where the same type of faith we ask our members to trust God with is the same type of faith we have. That you say tithe and trust that God is going to do it. Or when you lose your job, you still give and know that God will provide. But you lost your membership in person. So you have to trust that God is going to give. And many of us have seen stable or increasing giving. And if you see an increase in giving, if you think about the money that is going out, usually less money is going out right now. So it's an even greater increase than just the number that you see on the paper. So I think we have to get to the point. And since you look right now, instead of holding, I hope we exhibit some faith and hit the gas and not the brakes. That we go ahead and upgrade our technology because you need it anyway. That we go ahead and hire a virtual pastor because you need it anyway. That you actually have a consultant who's going to consult with you on public health matters because you need it anyway. So take advantage of this moment, because I do believe when the country legitimately opens back up and people go back to work, there will be people who, there are companies that can maintain right now because of the subsidies and you don't owe mortgage and things like that. Many of them will have to close once we return, because the reality of no one coming and no government subsidies will hit us with the truth. So I think we have to be at the point right now that we're exhibiting the same type of faith that we're asking everyone else to exhibit with this reintegration.
Absolutely.
No, this is good. Go ahead, Pastor.
I'd also encourage pastors and churches to embrace the idea of geographical creativity. What does that mean? What could your church space do other than meet on Sunday?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What there's going to be, and it's already started, there's going to be a reverse and upheaval in commercial real estate across this country.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because folk are figuring out, remember, you own commercial real estate, you got overhead, you got utilities, you got all this stuff, but you had to create a space where your people could serve. You had to create a space where your employees could work, they could do business, they could do what they did. COVID-19 sent everybody home. And you've been told for years, now what you did is important. You can't do it from home. Well, guess what you just learned? You can do it from home.
Mm-hmm.
And so now businesses are going to start putting up real estate for sale because they realize, you know what? We could get the same productivity out of our folk and get the same thing accomplished and get rid of this overhead.
Yep.
Yeah.
The church understands geographical creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the next season, our space is not so much church space. Maybe some of this commercial real estate becomes the opportunity for us to expand what it means to be church.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, y'all, if you ain't never dreamed before, cut your dream switch on. There's going to be an opportunity for some amazing transformative type stuff. You really want to do some community outreach? Own downtown real estate in your city. You really want to make an impact and do jobs and employment and touch education and healthcare? Grab some some top dollar, grab some community assets that will become available because of COVID-19. How do we posture ourselves now and prepare ourselves for that? Those are conversations I know we have at the Grow and strategy meetings and trying to figure out, man, this is a moment if we seize this opportunity. I'm sure Pastor Richardson is licking her chops as a construction person and knowing how to. I mean, you kind of seeing this in real time. Yeah. There's incredible opportunity available if we have the creativity to manage what the options are.
Yeah.
But then we have to minimize our ego, though, too, Pastor Fraser. You know, that's the tricky thing, because in church buildings, we get to beat our chest based on the building. You know, like there's an ego factor that wants you to have a beautiful building and it should be big. I mean, I was hustling myself to go get an office and a studio because we do so much video. My ego said yes. I kept hearing God say no. But my ego says, but you're a successful businesswoman. But God is saying, obviously, like, you don't even need it. And I wasn't at the place where I was slow enough, but I wasn't committed to not doing it. And I think that we're going to really deal with what it means, what our ego says for us to do. Our ego says build a bigger business, while God is saying, go get some real property that's going to do something for your community. And that's going to be hard for many people to say yes to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely.
Community church.
Pastor, you want to jump in?
I guess tagging on to even Reverend Bree and Dr. Faison, both on the real estate piece, but also introducing an aspect of market into ministry as well to fund ministry. I think that is something that we will see, maybe even restructuring our business model. These are things that I think even is going to help happen with the church. As well. And I think that we will see this. I'm looking into it already, just on how the advantages of having actually market ministry to fund what we're doing. And then also the impact of virtual. We have had people from all different states, Louisiana, Georgia, New York, New Jersey, that have viewed our service, even France. That have viewed our service in the past 3 weeks. I've been teaching on mountain movers and talking about the language of a mountain mover, the actions of a mountain mover. And they have watched the entire series and all of these things that we have. This is an awesome opportunity for us to maximize without comparison. And I think what happens is that's where the identity comes in, is because if I know who I am, it doesn't matter what someone else is doing. My voice will not be minimized by comparison, but it will be maximized because I'm maximizing my influence. And this is just so important that we do that in this time.
Absolutely. I also think the other day I was having a conversation with another pastor in my city, and their church was one of the ones that was not online. And, I offered him to come to our church, use our facility, use our equipment to film your services and so forth and so on, because, in the body of Christ, we can't be competing. And like you said, you're McDonald's, I'm Burger King. It's all right if you come and use some of the things that we have. I think that's so very, very important that the church has to collaborate and not compete with one another if we're going to begin to move the kingdom forward. Secondly, to the business aspect, I believe empowering our people to start their own businesses is tremendous. There are going to be individuals who are going to profit from this pandemic because they were able to get loans because they had legitimate businesses, not just side hustles. And they were able to get access to certain funds and PPP grants, etc., because they were legitimately in business. I think we have to do that. Our church started something about 4 years ago entitled Own It. And it was our initiative to help individuals take side hustles, take little things they were doing to make money on the side and legitimize it so that it can become a secondary source or even a primary source of income for them. The church has to look at ways that we can have individuals to move into their purpose and their destiny by owning their own business. Okay, we cannot just be waiting and living from paycheck to paycheck, waiting on the government to give us a stimulus or to give us some type of refund so that our lives can progress forward. I think that ownership is so very, very critical.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing. I know that we've used Dr. Faison talked about McDonald's and Burger King, and we put all these other comparisons together. Something that I noted when reading about how they maximize their product is that if you go to McDonald's and then you get chicken nuggets and they have barbecue sauce, that barbecue sauce is chemically relatable to the taste of their chicken nuggets. Wendy's does the same thing. If you take Wendy's barbecue sauce and use it with McDonald's chicken nuggets, it's not going to taste good. It's a chemical that they put in that reacts to those particular tastes. And so when, again, going back to this idea that what we produce and knowing our identity is going to connect to who has the palate for what we produce in ministry and our assignment. If we stay connected to our assignment, then we will produce what God has intended with our ministry, without comparison, knowing our identity, reaching who we're supposed to reach.
This is good. And I think what we have heard from this conversation is, one, knowing your identity, do what you do well, do it exceptionally. That you must pastor beyond Sunday. You just can't be on Sunday morning. That we have to make smart and wise decisions and connect with our community. We just want to thank you all. We have one last question, and we wish this debate. You guys need to see these social media. Y'all have this thing on the blaze. But if you could speak to leaders who are in your position, who are in a spot probably where you were 10 years prior, without that experience, some who are new to ministry, some who face challenges of having a large, older congregation, who maybe younger pastors who say, listen, you need to open church back up. We need you back in the church. We don't want that. We want to sit down and we want to hear hymns, and and we don't want to move in this direction. What would be your advice, your wise counsel, or what would you say to those leaders? Any type of advice that you could give them, encouragement?
One of the things that I would say is the biggest thing that I have utilized with my congregation is building trust. That is just so important. You have to build trust in order for them to see the necessity and the need to move forward. They have to trust your voice. They have to trust your leading. They have to trust that you have their best interest in mind. And then also, I think what also assists with this is communication and teaching. There are things that I had to expose them to in order for them to see the need. Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't realize that we could we could attain this, or we could do this. That's just like calling the member and who wanted to look at us on YouTube and actually send her the link and expose her to something that she hadn't been exposed to. And I said, I would say those things have actually helped me is trust and exposure and teaching are the things that have helped me personally.
Absolutely.
That's good. Faison.
I'd say trust yourself. All of us have been given gifts. All of us have been given capacity, acumen. I'm a firm believer in gifts, passion, and purpose. So gifts are what I do well. Passion is what I love to do. When I find the intersection of those two things, I find purpose, what I was created to do. Social media is great in that we get exposed to everything, but social media is terrible in that we get exposed to everything.
Right.
I hope that makes sense. I can be so exposed to what everybody else is doing that I spend no time cultivating, shaping, and affirming what I've been gifted to do. Mm-hmm. And I become an echo and not a voice. I think it's important that you trust yourself, that you trust what God has put in you and cultivate that. Be that. Be all right. Find confidence in that. The other thing is leadership is teaching other people how to do it. It's not doing it all. There's a book by Wayne Cordiero called Leading on Empty. He talks about he founded the church New Hope in Hawaii and ended up having a nervous breakdown, doing too much. And he has this reference, this statement where he says 95% of someone else can do 95% of what you do, but only you can do 5% of what you do. Yeah. He said, give 95% of your energy to the 5% of efforts that only you can accomplish. Mm-hmm. Right. Everything else, teach somebody else. Train, affirm, outsource, so that others grow in their leadership and you get to sit in the sweet spot that your gifts, your passion, and your purpose allow you to do that nobody else can produce. So find out who you are, trust what God put in you, and then those things that you don't do well, give away. Let other people shine, excel, and grow and develop. Stay in your sweet spot.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Reverend Bree.
I would say trust that you're not the only one who wants depth to your relationship. That you're not the only person bringing depth. That people want relationships beyond the surface with you. That would be probably the most important. And then whatever you need, you got, whether it's within you or whether it's someone to help you. But you're not doing anything alone, and that people want to support you. You know, I forever made the assumption that whatever was going to get done, Brianna was going to have to do it. And Brianna just didn't get here today because Brianna did things alone. There were people who, you know, in all my introverted ways would just kind of break down walls and be like, hey, I'm coming in. You know, I'm like, well, since you're here, it wasn't, you know, you just, and someone said to me, is it because you're afraid to ask for help? And I'm like, absolutely not. It's because I assume people don't want to help, right? It's not the courage to ask or the arrogance to think you don't need it, but you make assumptions about how people want to engage you. So don't make those assumptions because they're barriers. They're not blessings.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Hey, Bear, can you close us out?
Absolutely. I think that the key to success moving forward for any ministry, for any organization, is going to be teamwork. I think we have to shift from a tier model of leadership to a team model of leadership. That's the transition our church has been in for some time now, and we're starting to see the fruits of it. That before it was one person, I'm the pastor of this area, or I am the senior pastor of this. But if you don't have a team, man, that means all of that burden, all of that weight is on your shoulders. And so, as Pastor Faison mentioned earlier, you know, there are folks in your church who are very creative, way more creative than you are. There are people in your church that can do certain things and bring certain resources to the table that you could never bring to the table on your own. And so we have to switch to a team model. Like you have to be a facilitator. That's what you are. Facilitate the gifts, facilitate all of the talents and the anointings that's in your house, and position people in the right seat on the bus so that the ministry can move forward. I think the day is over when the pastor presides as a king over the ministry and everybody else is subject to his creativity and his vision alone. I think that God gives the vision to a committed man, but it takes a committed man or woman, unless we get patriarchal, but it takes a committed team in order to bring that vision to pass. So that would be the one thing that I would leave. Team. It makes the dream work.
Yes.
Amen.
Thank y'all so much for joining in on our conversation tonight. Like Corey was saying, social media is enjoying it, and I know I am. I forgot I was facilitating at some point.
I know we just glued in.
Can we start with Reverend Bree? Can you tell us how to connect with you? And anything going?
Yeah. So the so the survey I mentioned is weeklypastorpoll.com/BMC. That's weeklypastorpoll.com/BMC. Or you can check us out in all of our offerings on irunbmc.com. And you can find me on social media at REV_BRI.
Appreciate that. And we'll post that on our social media for you guys. Bishop Hebert.
Okay.
Yes, Beacon Light Church of Hammond, Louisiana, is where you can find us on Facebook, Instagram. You can follow me on YouTube at Dennis R. Hebert Jr. And then, of course, on Instagram at Dennis Hebert Jr. as well.
Great. Pastor Faison.
Awesome. Watson Grove Baptist Church, Nashville, Tennessee. Our website is thegrovebr.org. Social media, so you'll find Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff there on the website. Personally, John Faison Sr., Twitter at the Grove, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well.
And Pastor Richardson.
Yes, St. James Baptist Church, and it's stjamesbc.org. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Personally, it's BJR Ministries on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all the same.
So thank you all so much for joining us. This conversation will be archived on our YouTube page for all of those who were not able to join the entire conversation. But it looks as though everyone stayed on the entire time. So kudos to all of you, Pastor Bianca, Reverend Dr. Faison, Bishop Hebert, and Reverend Bree. Thank you all for accepting our invitation. We have enjoyed this conversation. It has been some solid information that we all need to hear. So thank you so much for being a part of this discussion.
Yes.
Thank you.
Talk to you all soon.
That was good. Some good stuff.
Man, that was some great, and I'm so glued in. I'm trying to write down stuff and take notes.
I definitely forgot I was supposed to be moderated.
I know, right? And I gotta actually go back and watch some of this stuff. It was great information. It was timely. It just made sense. And so I was trying to take notes. Listen, we need you guys to go back and watch. If you haven't already, like this video, share it with your friends so they can go back and watch as well. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you click that gray bell so you subscribe to our channel so that you can be a part of future discussions and debates like this. KJ, I just had a blast tonight, honestly.
What was your top moment? I know there were many. What was one thing that stuck out?
Man, so many, because each of them had such great points. I think when Pastor Faison said that we had to be data-driven and not date-driven, and it's so true, because I think people are so busy trying to put the economy over everything else, and it's like, what's the rush? There is no different information than 7 weeks ago when it started. There's no vaccine, and we're able to still get the word out and actually go beyond the 4 walls of the church. And that's what Christ requires us to do. So you are right. What is the rush? Give us time to decide what the new normal will look like. What about you? What kind of stood out to you during this debate?
So I was trying to take notes myself. I have to go back and watch it. But 2 things. Know your identity and connect with your community. You have to know who you're serving, know your audience. Those are
and like Reverend Bree said, if you do what you do exceptionally well, you'll never have to compete.
Yeah.
And that's so true. Yeah.
So before we leave, and thank you guys for all of the comments. We really appreciate it. You know how we do it at the Grove. We want to give 2 businesses, 2 Black small businesses, a shout out. Our first Black business is Educational Diagnostic Services and Consulting of Louisiana. That's owned by Executive Director Dr. Summer Whitmore. The EDSCLA provides comprehensive evaluations for Louisiana students with disabilities through a multidisciplinary team offering on-site consultations, diagnostic testing, and the professional development of teachers. You can connect with them at www.edscla.com. Again, that's edscla.com. And our second business to give a huge shout out to is Culminating Cuisine Cakes and Candies that's owned by Ashley Vance. Culminating Cuisine Cakes and Candies is where you can find all things yummy foods and treats. You can check them out on all social media platforms at Culminating Cuisine Cakes and Candies or at Ashley Vance. And we want to thank you guys so much for the overwhelming response with the Black business shout outs. We are definitely going to give you a big shout out on our social media pages and next week on our next episode, which I have to say, I'm excited for, Corey.
Yeah, you would be, because it kind of speaks to what you do in ministry. And I'm excited about speaking to that panel too. And likewise, if you think there's a topic you want to see us cover, cover, or you think we need to talk to somebody, a panel, man, let us know. Reach out to us. Like this message, send us a direct message, put it in the comment section. We're just trying to do as much as we can to make divine connections with you all. And thank you for rocking with us, for staying with us. We see your support. We get your text messages, and it means so much. And we really enjoy what we do. You all make the difference. So thank you so much.
Definitely. I enjoyed this week, Corey.
Yeah, I agree. It was bananas, but I had an awesome time tonight. All
right. Y'all have a blessed and safe weekend. Stay protected, stay safe, stay at home as much as possible. Wash those hands. And once again, we send many blessings your way for your families.
I love you guys. See you later.
Peace.